Hello, everybody. I think we can already start with to start presenting this webinar for XEVMPD. So first of all, some welcome and some housekeeping notes. So for your information, this session is going to be recorded. Then we will make available the recording through the EMA corporate website and the YouTube channel. We will also make available the slides, so you can pay attention now, and then if you need, you can go back to the recording or the presentation because we will make everything available. Please be aware that we are going to open the Slido, which is the tool that we are using to receive input and questions from the audience. This interaction with the Slido is voluntary. You may opt to remain anonymous, but if you want to include your name, you are also consenting the processing of the data as explained in this, the EMA data privacy statement that we have for Slido. You have a link there. So we really appreciate if you provide your input using Slido. We will make available here on this slide. This is the QR code that you can use to connect to Slido via the phone. You can also do it through slido.com and then including this ID that we have for the meeting. You can send your questions using the application, the app, or you can also upvote the questions if you want them to be answered. At the end of the presentation, we will have a short Q&A session where we will try to reply most of the questions, or at least as many questions as possible. We will go through the order for the most upvoted questions. We will try to reply them first. We might not have enough time to reply all the questions, so we will try to either reply the questions or take them on board to be able to publish them on an FAQ document in the sport portal or in the different FAQ documents that we have for XEVMPD. You will also have the Slido code throughout the full presentation. So in every slide, you have the code in case you don't remember it or whatever. You will always have this code in the presentation. So welcome everybody to the product management service, so the XEVMPD webinar, which is taking place as part of this Sport Week from the 17th to the 20th of April. I assume that most of you have already attended the rest of the webinars that we have had during this week. We have had this Sport and XEVMPD data governance at the service desk, RMS, OMS, and SMS. Now is the turn of XEVMPD, and tomorrow we still have 2 additional webinars for the Sport API and also for the EMA account management. So we really want to thank you for attending all those webinars. We still have more webinars tomorrow. And again, we really appreciate your attendance and your support and all the questions that we have received from you so far. So which are the goals of this session? So the idea of this webinar is to try to recap on the XEVMPD submissions requirements, not only for AMPs, but also for DMPs, the development medicinal products. We want to provide an update on which are the next improvements, the planned improvements that we have already defined for this year for XEVMPD. We also want to give you an overview of the XEVMPD statistics, so all the numbers, how many requests do we receive, the number of products that we have, etc. I think it's a really interesting topic. And also we want to provide you additional information on the well-known relationship between XEVMPD and PMS. We might have a lot of questions about this topic, so we will try to explain again the relationship and try to answer as many questions as possible on this topic. So today we are presenting here. I'm Marcos Fernandez. I'm here also together with Veronica Baker. We are both the XEVMPD business leads. I'm also part of the PMS product owner, so we have this link between the both systems. So really happy to be here to present this webinar. In this slide, you can see the agenda. We will give you an introduction on XEVMPD, which are the different XEVMPD processes. Then we will jump into the authorized medicinal products in XEVMPD together with the development products, with, which are the requirements for the submissions, how to submit, everything around the different records that we have in XEVMPD. We will have also an overview on the XEVMPD data quality management and the XEVMPD statistics. Then Veronica will also give you an overview of the documents that we have in relation to XEVMPD. So you will have there all the useful links to the documentation, the guidance, the Q&A documents, everything that might be needed from your side to be able to be compliant with XEVMPD. We will have also a section on the XEVMPD and the relationship with PMS and somehow to the EAF and the PLM portal, which are the XEVMPD recent and planned activities that are going to happen through this year. And to close the session, we will have the key takeaways and the conclusions, and we will have time to answer those questions that we are already receiving in Slido. So if you are fine with that, I will start with the first part of the webinar, which is the introduction to XEVMPD. So as you already know, this XEVMPD has been running for more than 10 years. So you know that XEVMPD is the central source of medicinal product data, not only for authorized, but also for development medicinal products that support different processes within the network. The product data that you submit, that the industry is submitting and maintained in the Article 57 database, is submitted by the MA holders and the sponsors. The authorized medicinal product data that we received is validated by EMA to be able to ensure the standardization of the data. But we also provide customer support via the EMA service desk. There has been already a webinar fully dedicated to the EMA service desk, but we will try to recap a bit on which are the different activities that we perform in service desk. You know also that XEVMPD database can be accessible through two different sources. We have the user interface, which is also called EVWeb, but it can also be accessed through the gateway. So we have an API connection and machine-to-machine connection. So this is the other way that XEVMPD database can be accessible. If we talk about the pre-submission requirements, so what do you need to have to be able to submit data into XEVMPD? So both the sponsors and MA holders organization must be registered, first of all, within OMS, the Organization Management Services, but they also has to be registered in EUDRA Vigilance for medicinal product reporting. So we need to have the QPPV or the responsible person should be registered under the headquarter profile of the organization. These user roles are managed in the EMA account management portal. We will have a bit more information about this later. And also important, at least one person from the organization must follow the XEVMPD training course. So we need to have this notification of successful completion of the XEVMPD training course. At least one person, again, of this organization should be in the possession of this notification. Because as part of the organization registration in EV, we need to have this certificate. So how this certificate can be how can you get these certificates is, as we can see here, through the e-learning training course, or what we have called also the face-to-face training course. Right now, it's only done virtually. But if we go into the XEVMPD, the e-learning training process, you know that this process is now held in service desk. So any user that wants to register on the e-learning course, you can submit a request for registration via the service desk. We usually received around 10 to 15 requests per month. Once we have received these requests in service desk, we assess the registration. In case we need additional information, the request is not approved, and we come back to the user asking for the additional information that we need. once we have received the complete information, so the name, email of the user, the company that wants to be registered under, and everything, we approve the request and we send the documents and the XCOMP credentials, so the user can start with the performing the different tests. The submission of these credentials and the documents is done within 5 working days. This is the SLA that we have. And once the user performs the assessment and they submit all the documentation for the evaluation in Service Desk, in the ticket that they have already created, we perform the assessment. We have, again, 5 working days to perform this assessment. In the case the user fails this exam, what we do is we send the user again additional documentation for the assessment of the failed part. So there are 2 parts. If one of them is failed, then we send the additional information for this one. Users have 3 attempts for each failed part. And if the user fails at the 3 attempts, then we advise them to follow the face-to-face training course. In case everything goes well, then the exam or this assessment is passed, and EMA provides the user with a certification of completion of the XEVMPD training course that is used for the registration of the company and the different users in EudraVigilance. In the case of the XEVMPD face-to-face training process, this face-to-face training that right now is held virtually, the users have to register for specific training dates or courses, because we have 2 different ones. We have one for authorized medicinal products and development medicinal products, and another one is specific only for development medicinal products. So users register with DIA, which is the service provider that we have for this training course. The user attends the training, they perform the assessment, and then DIA and the trainers are evaluating these, the different documents provided by the users. If the user fails, then they receive again new documentation for the assessment, and there are 3 different attempts again for each failed part. If the user passed the exam, then the results are communicated to EMA, and EMA sends the notification of the successful completion of the XEVMPD training course that should be used for the registration in EudraVigilance. This is part of the registration and all the prerequisites that you need to have in order to be able to submit the data into XEVMPD. Now, once you have the registration and you have to submit the data to XEVMPD, we have 2 ways of submitting data. This is we have the web trader submission. So this is using the XEVMPD data entering tool. It's a user interface through EV, where you can go and include all the information for your product, submit, update. You can perform any activity through this user interface. There are some companies that they don't use the EV web, the user interface, and they submit their data through the gateway. So it's an API connection between their systems and the API. So these are the 2 ways that we have for receiving the data into XEVMPD. It is important to know that either way, if you submit through EVWeb or you use it or you submit through the gateway, the XEVPRM acknowledgements are provided to the sender organization after each submission. We will explain later. We have 2 different acknowledgements: first, second acknowledgement, and the third acknowledgement. Any acknowledgement is received by the sender organization after every submission. So in this slide, we are trying to provide you a bit of overview of the EV registration process. Please be aware that this is a summary. There are specific documents where we talk about how the registration in EudraVigilance should be done. But let's start from the beginning, so from the left side of the slide. So we have that one user from the organization have attended the XEVMPD training, and they have obtained the notification of the successful completion of this training. Then the first user needs to register within the EMA account management portal. As we said before, this organization must be registered in OMS. If the organization is not registered in OMS, then the company has to go into OMS, submit a request. There has been OMS webinar, so I'm sure they have explained all this process in their webinar. Once the organization is registered in OMS, there should be a request for the responsible person or the QPP role in the EMA account management portal. In order to get the approval of this role, you need to submit a ticket via the EMA service desk, attaching different documentation. So you need to attach the reference role request ID from the EMA account management portal. You need to provide the supporting documentation, and if needed, you need to provide also the gateway connection details. This is in the case you are going to submit through the API using the gateway. Then in vigilance restricted area, you have to complete or update the information in a section that we call the manage your profile. You will receive a confirmation about the submission mode. So if it's web trader or gateway, and then the user roles will be approved in the EMA account management portal. Once this is done, the organization and the users will be registered. Again, it might looks like a lengthy process. We have documents explaining this process, and we will also provide you more information where those documents are located in case you have any doubt. Important information, the EV registration team is providing additional support for non-commercial sponsors. There is a section on the EV registration manual where you can find all this information. So in case you are a non-commercial sponsor and you need additional support for the registration, please go into this section of the registration manual, because it might be interesting for you if you are struggling with the registration. So this is a bit the introduction on XEVMPD. Let's go now to the XEVMPD process. So what are the different processes that we are managing in XEVMPD? So maybe you already know, but in the XEVMPD data management processes, we have, let's say, three different actors. We have the sport users, the ones that are submitting the data for authorized medicinal products and also for development medicinal products. We have the EMA data stewards, and we also have the business leads or the product owners, in this case, Veronica and me. Among all the activities that we do within XEVMPD, we have what we call the data stewardship. We have some data services where we proactive validate and do data curation. So we aim to validate all the authorized medicinal products that we received as new in XEVMPD. We also do data cleansing and corrections of the data, and we also have follow-up communication with the users. We will explain this later. You might also have questions about these follow-up communications that we send periodically to the users. As part of this data stewardship, we also do data publication. So every month, we publish the list of authorized medicinal products in order to share the pharmacovigilance contact details for the different products that we have in the database. We also have processes related to customer service. This is everything related to service desk. So we receive from the sport users different requests for information. We also receive requests for services, or they also report us with technical issues. And we have a specific team. Our IT team is helping those users to solve any technical issue that they can have. As part of the activities that business leads or product owners are doing, we have this data quality management. So we do quality control, we check, and we do also sampling of the different activities that are performed at EMA and also by the validation team. We do data profiling, so we try to monitor and investigate across the different data that we have, all the different records that we have in XEVMPD. We will try to give you more information about that later on. And we also do quality assurance. So we try to see which are the different root causes of the issues that we have with the data validation, for example, or the data that we are receiving. And we also try to improve our processes. So every year we try to improve at least one of the processes that we have. So for example, we try to improve the follow-up communications, we try to improve the data standardization, we try to improve different processes as part of this data quality management. And then we also have the service management. So we do service coordination with the data governance and also the IT delivery. We have regular meetings with our IT colleagues because they try to improve also the system. In case we need to include any additional IT requirement into the system, we are part there as the business colleagues because we need to give the business part into the service coordination. And then we also do performance management, so the invoicing part. We also do the KPI reporting, customer satisfaction. So these are all the processes and all the activities that we are doing as part of the XEVMPD. I think we have already talked about, okay, which are the requirements that we have for XEVMPD, for the submission of authorized medicinal products, for development medicinal products. We have talked about also about the different services that we provide as part of the of XEVMPD. So we will start now going into the different type of products that we have in XEVMPD. We will start with the authorized medicinal products, what we also call AMPs. You know that there is a legal obligation from Article 57 of that regulation, and we also have the EA agreement and the protocol on Ireland and or Northern Ireland that is clearly stated that MA holders must submit the XEVMPD information on medicinal products for human use that has been authorized under different procedures, so national procedures, MRP, DCPs, or centrally authorized procedures in the EU, EEA countries, and also in Northern Ireland. We have, I think, already well-known dates. After a new medicinal product has been authorized, MA holders have 15 calendar days to submit the data into XEVMPD. But they also need to keep updated the data. So whenever there is an amendment to the marketing authorization, whenever there is a change to the marketing authorization because there has been a variation or a transfer, renewal, suspension, any change to the marketing authorization must be submitted not later than 30 calendar days from the date of the approval. Nevertheless, XEVMPD not only contains the authorized medicinal products, those are mandatory, but we also have some voluntary products that can be submitted into the XEVMPD database. Here you have them listed. You have the herbal and homeopathic medicinal products. You also have the named patient use or the EU distribution procedures, those that are approved under Article 5.1 or Article 5.2. You can also, if you want, submit in a voluntary basis the parallel distribution or imported medicinal products. Those products that are authorized outside EA, so not only UK, but also if you want to submit those products authorized, for example, in Canada, in Japan, in any different country that is not part of EA, you can also submit it. And also the non-EU procedures. One additional voluntary submission products that you can submit is those that have that don't have a marketing authorization in EU or EEA, but which are approved under the emergency use, for example, the compassionate use or other national schemas. So these are in a voluntary basis. There is also information on how to submit those different records in XEVMPD. So yeah, feel free to submit those products if you want to. So what's the process for the initial submission of a medicinal product? So we have the medicinal product has been authorized by the National Competence Authority. So MA holder has 15 calendar days from the date of authorization where they have to submit this authorized medicinal product data. They need to insert the authorized medicinal product information. They have to include who's the MA holder, what's the pharmacovigilance system master file, the QPPV information, ingredients. There is a list of data elements that have to be submitted to XEVMPD. And you also need to insert and make a reference to the supporting documents. Most of the times the document is the SMPC or the package leaflet, but we can also receive the authorization letter, for example, or any other document that might be useful for the validation of the data. Once the product has been submitted by the EMA holder, there is a technical validation. It's totally technical. And what we check is that the mandatory data is provided and the submission is in accordance with the technical and business rules that we have in these two documents, the technical specifications, and also chapter 3.2, which is the Bible for XEVMPD. Once this technical validation is passed, the user will receive the first and the second acknowledgement in their system, either EVWeb or in their RIM system or the system that they are using to submit through the gateway. Once the initial submission for a medicinal product has been submitted and accepted by the system, within 2 weeks, we aim to provide the content validation or the data standardization that is done by the EMA data stewards. We use different documents to follow this content validation or standardization. So we have chapter 3.2, we have QC methodology, we also use the information provided in the documents. We have also some rationals assessment of the submitted information. So everything we have there is what we use for this data standardization. Once the EMA data stewards have done this content validation, then if we are not able to access all the data, and we go to the bottom of the slide, we will trigger a follow-up communication with the MA holder. So the MA holder will receive a communication via email explaining what is missing and why we cannot validate the data that we have received. So the idea is that the MA holder amends the product entry as required, providing additional documentation or making the necessary changes. This follow-up communication has also a timeline specified. It's either 15 or 30 calendar days. Once this product is validated with or without changes made as part of the validation, then the EMA holder receives the what we call the third acknowledgement. In this acknowledgement, we explain, okay, your product has been validated without any change, or in case we have done any change to the data in order to standardize the data, then you have a report of the data that we have changed. Then this AMP record is becoming visible to other users in EVWeb. It's not visible only for the owner organization and EMA, it's also visible for the rest of the users because it's used to support the pharmacovigilance activities. Obviously, if the EMA holder disagrees with the changes that we have made as part of the data validation or data standardization, you can open a ticket in service desk asking us for the changes. So what's the rationale behind the changes that we have done? And in case we get into an agreement, you provide the explanation, we can revert the changes if needed. This part was for the initial submission of authorized medicinal products. This slide is now related to the amendments or changes provided to the records that we already have in XEVMPD. So once the marketing authorization amendment, a variation, renewal, transfer, whatever, has been authorized by the NCA, then MA holders have 30 calendar days from the date when the amendments were authorized. You need to provide the different information via an insert, an update, and validation of the authorized medicinal product data in XEVMPD. All the different processes, how this should be submitted is explained in chapter 3.2, is the business guidance. And obviously you need to provide the supporting documentation to support this change. Again, there is a technical validation. If the technical validation is passed, you receive the first and the second acknowledgement. And here is where we have the change. So The content validation or the data standardization done by EMA data stewards is not done for all the updates that we receive in XEVMPD, mainly because you will see in the XEVMPD statistics, we received so many updates that we don't have enough resources to validate each and every update. So what we do is we perform a follow-up validation as needed and as the resources that we have allowed, and maximum within 2 years since the last validation. Again, we follow the same documents to validate this content, the chapter 3.2 QC methodology, supporting documents. We use all those documents that we have. One additional activity that we perform at EMA is what we call the CAP submission compliance. What we do is we regularly check the new centrally authorized products that have been approved. We check which are the products that the authorized medicinal products that have been approved via centrally authorized products in our database. Most of you may already know it's called SciAmed, and we compare it with the XEVMPD entries that we have received. So then this product information is entered in the EMA scientific group table and also in what is called the European Pharmacovigilance Issues Tracking Tool. So in case we identified that a CAP medicinal product has not been entered in XEVMPD by the EMA holder within 15 calendar days, then the QPPV of this product is contacted because we really need to have those products in XEVMPD. We do the same with the transfer centrally authorized medicinal product. We checked which are those products that have been transferred. We check if the former EMA holder has invalidated the record in XEVMPD, and we also check if the new EMA holder has submitted the new record. In case we have not received this transfer within the 30 calendar days, then again, the QPPV is contacted so we can have this information in XEVMPD. As part of the authorized medicinal product data, we also do data publication. So every month, as I said before, we publish the list of medicinal products that are authorized in EU and EEA. You have here the link. Whenever we share the presentation, you will have the link as well. And the aim is to share the EMA holders' pharmacovigilance contact details, so the phone number, the email, etc. We have stopped the publication every quarter of the XEVMPD control vocabulary list. We used to have a section where we used to publish, for example, the new authorized the dose forms, the administrable route of administrations, and all those different terms, substances, etc. This publication has been discontinued from this year because all this information is now available in the relevant sport services. So you can go to RMS and you will be able to find this information. So that's why we have discontinued with the publication of this information. And then what we usually do is we do ad hoc updates on documentation. So we have guidances, Q&A documents, and other documents that we update as if needed. Then I'll pass the floor to Veronica, who is going to explain to you more information about the development medicinal products.
Good afternoon, everybody, once again. In terms of submission of development medicinal products or investigational medicinal product, as correctly referenced by sponsors, please note that these are mandated by regulation number 536 from 2014 and also by CT3. Please note that sponsors are required to submit in the XEVMPD information on the investigational medicinal product before completing the clinical trials application form. As you are aware, a clinical trial application is to be submitted in the European Union Drug Regulation Authority's clinical trials, or UDRUCT-CT for short, database. However, from the 31st of January 2022, clinical trials can also be registered directly via the Clinical Trials Information System. Please note that you need the EU substance number and EU product number to be able to register the trial in CTIS. The search in CTIS must be performed on the EU MP number together with the EU substance number, and the EU substance number is the number of the substance referenced in the product in the XEVMPD as the active substance. Please also note that even though the CT3 legislation does not cover the product information update in the XEVMPD, it is expected and required that the sponsor maintains the information up to date in CTIS. So what is an EU substance number? Well, the EU substance number is a substance EV code in the XEVMPD. So that is a code assigned to a specific substance record in the XEVMPD. Substance records are inserted in the XEVMPD by the EMA's Substance Management Service, SMS data stewards, on request from marketing authorization holders or sponsors of clinical trials. So for those who attended the SMS presentation earlier today, this was explained in detail. So if a sponsor needs to find out if a substance is already available in the XEVMPD, those sponsors who already have access to EVWeb, which is the user interface of XEVMPD, can actually search the XEVMPD substance lookup tables. Sponsors without access to EVWeb can actually download the current and non-current substance lists directly from the SMS portal. If a substance is missing in the XEVMPD, you can request addition or an update of an existing substance in the XEVMPD via the EMA service desk, and you use the request for SMS services. For this request, you will need to include a brief description of the substance, also the substance request form, which is actually available in the request for SMS services in the service desk, and also supporting documentation. Our colleagues from the SMS team, which are the EMA data stewards, will validate the request based on the applicable SLAs. And if the request was approved, an EV code will be assigned to the substance. It will be shared with the requester. The data will be updated in SMS and also published in the consuming systems. And the substance will be available in the XEVMPD. If the request is rejected, the reason for rejection will be explained to the requester. What is the EU product number and how can you request it? So EU product number is the product EV code, which again is a code assigned to a specific product in the XEVMPD. As you are aware, authorized medicinal product information is inserted in the XEVMPD by marketing authorization holders. Unauthorized medicinal products, which we refer to in the XEVMPD as development, are inserted in the XEVMPD by sponsors of clinical trials. These are commercial and non-commercial. And you should be aware that the EMA does not enter information about authorized or unauthorized medicinal products in the XEVMPD on behalf of marketing authorization holders and sponsors. So how can you find a product EV code of an authorized medicinal product record in the XEVMPD? Again, if you're a sponsor with access to EVWeb, you can actually search the XEVMPD based on specified criteria. You can use the advanced or simple queries directly in EVWeb. If you do not have access to EVWeb, you can submit an EMA service desk request for XEVMPD and Article 57 services. And in this request, you should specify the name of the medicinal product as stated in Section 1 of the SMPC, the authorization number, authorization country, and the name of the marketing authorization holder. We will then provide you, we will search the database, and if we find the product, we will provide you with the EV code that is assigned to that product record. Please note that our SLA is 5 working days to fulfill this request. How do you get a product EV code of a development medicinal product record in the XEVMPD? Well, the short answer to this would be you have to submit the product information in the XEVMPD as the sponsor. So very simple rules. if an active substance is used in a clinical trial in a new pharmaceutical dose form or in a new strength, you as the sponsor should submit a new DMP in the XEVMPD. If you are using in a clinical trial in the EU a product which is not authorized in the EU or the EEA, again, you must submit a new development medicinal product in the XEVMPD. If the submission was successful, you will receive an XEVPRM acknowledgement, which will contain the EV code assigned to your development medicinal product. The acknowledgements are sent within 24 hours, and the product EV code will be retrievable in CTIS the next day. If this is not the case, and you have an acknowledgement stating that your development medicinal product was successfully inserted and an EV code was assigned, I would encourage you to log a service desk ticket for the CTIS team to check why your product entry is not available in CTIS when it was submitted the previous day. Now, a brief overview of the initial submission process done by sponsors of clinical trials. So, providing that a sponsor is registered with EudraVigilance, which is one of the pre-submission requirements, you need to submit the development medicinal product data in the XEVMPD. As part of this submission, you will insert the development medicinal product information according to the information that is in the investigator's brochure. If the required sponsor organization that you need to reference in the development medicinal product is not present in the XEVMPD, you should insert the sponsor organization together with the development medicinal product information. And as I mentioned before, if the required active substance that you need to reference in your development medicinal product is not present in the XEVMPD, you should request the insert of the substance information via the dedicated request for SMS services via the EMA service desk. When you submit the data, the XEVMPD performs a technical check to make sure that mandatory data is provided in accordance with the technical and business rules. And then you will receive the first and second XEVPRM acknowledgement. The first acknowledgement is an MDN acknowledgement, which is generated at the gateway level. The second acknowledgement is what you receive as the center organization. And in that acknowledgement, you will find a confirmation whether your product was submitted successfully or not. If successfully submitted, the EV code is assigned, the product entry is flagged as valid in the XEVMPD, and the product is used to support pharmacovigilance processes at the EMA, which also means that the DMP EV code will be retrievable in CTIS the following day. If you check the acknowledgement and you do not have an EV code of your development medicinal product, you will usually have a notification which says that there might have been an issue why the product was not successfully submitted. You need to pay attention to the message that is displayed in the XEVPRM acknowledgement, correct the data accordingly, and then resubmit. If you have any question or require support with your submissions, you should contact us through the EMA service desk. You can raise questions, you can also submit requests, or you can report incidents which are issues with the applications. Points that you need to consider as sponsor for your submissions. So, as I mentioned before, an active substance is studied in a clinical trial in the same pharmaceutical dose form, however, with different strengths. Please know that you need to enter separate development medicinal products in the XEVMPD for each of those pharmaceutical products. So I have included a few, a graphical representation of what I'm talking about. So if you have an active ingredient XYZ, which is studied in 3 different strengths, in 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, and 150 milligrams per capsule, you should not enter this information in the XEVMPD as a one development medicinal product referencing 3 pharmaceutical products. This is incorrect. On the right-hand side, you can see how the data should be correctly entered. You should have 3 development medicinal products, each referencing one pharmaceutical product, each referencing the respective concentration of the active ingredient. You should reference in one development medicinal product entry multiple pharmaceutical products only if these pharmaceutical products are part of the same package. For example, if the subjects of the clinical trial receive a tablet as well as, for example, cream to use at the same time. If the same medicinal product is studied by different sponsors, then we expect that each of the sponsors submits their own development medicinal product in the XEVMPD. The reason for it is that each development medicinal product is sponsor specific and it needs to be uniquely identifiable. Also, as you might be aware, the data entered in the XEVMPD as development is considered strictly confidential and is only visible to the sponsor organization that owns this product data in the XEVMPD. This means that sponsor from organization 1 cannot view development medicinal product data submitted by sponsor organization 2. Please also note that updates of the submitted data can only be performed by the owner organization. So sponsor 2 would not be able to A, retrieve the development product submitted by sponsor 1, nor perform any update on the product owned by sponsor 1. We seem to receive quite a few questions related to auxiliary medicinal products. So as you know, the regulation defines auxiliary medicinal product as a medicinal product authorized in accordance with regulation number 726 from 2004. Therefore, if a medicinal product exists with a valid marketing authorization in the EU and the EEA, the product is submitted in the XEVMPD as an authorized medicinal product by the marketing authorization holder. If it is studied in a clinical trial in its authorized form, where nothing changes, which means the same pharmaceutical dose form, same active ingredient and its concentration, in the CTA form, the sponsor should make a reference to the authorized medicinal product entered in the XEVMPD by the MAH. However, if the authorized product is studied in a clinical trial in different pharmaceutical dose form or different composition, then the sponsor must enter in the XEVMPD a development medicinal product entry and reference the EV code assigned to this development medicinal product entry in the clinical trial application form. If you are using in your clinical trial in the EU a medicinal product which already exists with a valid marketing authorization outside the EU or EEA, then if it is studied in its authorized form, because it is a product that's authorized outside the EU, you still have to enter the medicinal product information in the XEVMPD as a development medicinal product. And in the clinical trial application form, you will reference the EV code of the DMP as you have entered it in the XEVMPD. And if the product is studied in different pharmaceutical dose forms and composition, so that means there's a different active ingredient and concentration to how it is authorized outside the EU or EEA, again, the sponsor should enter the medicinal product information in the XEVMPD and then make reference to the development medicinal product entity in the XEVMPD in the clinical trial application form. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. So we continue with the XEVMPD data quality management. So we have already said at the beginning of the webinar the different services and processes that we perform within XEVMPD. In relation to the data quality management, we, let's say, have two different approaches. So we have a proactive approach to really control the data quality that we have in XEVMPD. So we have some quality assurance. So as I explained before, we try to improve different processes. So every year we try to, or we aim to improve different processes in relation to the data quality. And we also try to analyze the different root causes that are providing or giving us bad data quality or data quality issues. Um, as part of the data management tasks, so as we have explained, we have the different validation tasks. So every time we received a new record in XEVMPD, we aim to validate this record. For the updates, we try to validate as many updates as possible, but obviously resources might not make it possible to validate all of the updates. So for those validation tasks, what we usually do is we take a sample, around 20% of the validation tasks, and what we do is inspect and try to detect if there has been any mistake on the validation or the standardization of the data. Moreover, at EMA, we also sample those tasks and we reinspect these validation tasks, so we are able to calibrate a bit the QC results. Then if we see different patterns that, okay, this value has a lot of validation mistakes, we put different processes in place to improve our data quality. We also do data monitoring and follow-up communications. For example, the follow-ups are mostly related to the QPPV data, the pharmacovigilance system master file, and the SMPC. But we also do some data profiling. So we try to build those profiles to identify data that is not meeting our data quality rules. And we also have these notifications that are sent to DMA holders in relation to the QPPV or the pharmacovigilance system master file location. But we also have some reactive approach for this data quality. This is mainly provided by you. So through the customer service, through service desk, we receive different issues, questions. So those issues are reported when you foresee or you check that there has been any data quality issue. Those data quality defects, so either coming from this proactive approach or from the reactive approach, are then triaged and are classified into major, medium, or minor. And then as part of the data services, we try to identify those errors, correct them on in XEVMPD, and we try to improve the different processes so we reduce these data quality issues. Here you have some numbers. So for us, the data quality is acceptable if we receive less than 0.001% for major errors, 0.005% for medium, and 0.01 of minor errors. Now, what do we mean by major, medium, or minor? So we have somehow, this is a summary. We don't have all the fields here, but for you to maybe understand, for us, a major error is when the validation is done incorrectly for fields that can have a major impact on internal processes. So, for example, if there is an impact on the pharmacovigilance fees, on ICSRs, on those processes that we are running internally at EMA, any mistake or any error on those fields, we consider it as major. Those fields are, for example, the legal basis, the organization details, the authorization country, the status or the authorization number, the name, and the pharmacovigilance dose form. So you can see that those fields, for example, are used for the calculation of the chargeable units. So if as part of our internal validation, we make a mistake on one of those fields, then this mistake is considered as major. We also have another fields that we consider as medium. These fields have a lower impact on internal processes. So for example, the authorization procedure type, the MEDRA codes, or the ATC codes, for example. And then we have the minor error type. for fields where there is no impact or the impact is really minor on the different processes. So for example, the pharmacovigilance email or the phone or the package description, those fields are not really impacting any internal process at EMA or even any external process that we know. So we consider this as minor mistakes. Here in this graphic, you can see the data quality of for the overall audited records that we have done for the last year, 2022. You can see that we have audited 27,000 records in 2022. Without errors, we had nearly the 98%, and only the 2% of the records that were audited had at least one error. You can see here that then we have the high impact errors. We had 397, for medium 141, and for low we have 28. So this is okay for our data quality measures. So this is just an overview of the different errors that we have identified for the products that we have audited during 2022. Continue with the graphics. We can jump now to the XEVMPD statistics, and here we wanted to present a couple of numbers for the for last year. So as you can see here in this graphic on the left-hand side, we have the number of AMPs and DMP records. On the left side, you can see that we have in XEVMPD 1,400,000 records for AMPs. You can see that we are almost have 17,000 DMPs. So the line is really thin because the difference between the AMPs and DMPs are very different. And you can also see the total active validated records. So the difference between one and the other is that on the left-hand side, we have all the records, AMPs, DMPs, including the nullified ones and the invalidated. And on the right, we have the AMPs, DMPs, but we have excluded the nullified and the invalidated ones. So we only include in this graphic there the validated records. So we have around 670,000 AMPs and 10,000 DMPs. You can see on the graphic on the right the rate of change for AMPs. Forget about the 2021 because the issue is that we started counting this KPI on 2021, so the graphic is a bit disturbed. But in 2022, we have received 55,000 new records, and we have received 500 and almost 60,000 updates in XEVMPD. So this is for you to see the amount of records that or submissions that we are receiving every year. In XEVMPD, we received around 10 times more updates than new records throughout the year. In relation to the product validation tasks, you can see again, in 2020 is when we started to count those KPIs. So that's why you can see here that 2020, the numbers are lower than the rest of the years. In the rest of the years, you can see that more or less the numbers are keeping more or less aligned. So on the left-hand side, you can see the record validation tasks that we have for new products or for updated products. So this year we have done a validation of nearly 51,000 new records. As we explained before, we aim to validate all new EEA authorized medicinal products. So then, for example, the herbal medicinal products, homeopathic medicinal products, we don't validate those records. We only validate the ones that are for EEA. Then we have these total active validated records, and more than 20% of those updates were validated at the end of the year. Obviously, we prioritize this validation based on the available capacity. So if, for example, 1 month we receive less new medicinal products, then we validate more updates, and the other way around. On the right-hand side, you can see the records that have been validated and how many of those records have been audited. So in 2022, you can see that a total of, so we validate 128,000 records. Among those validated records, we audited 27,000 records in 2022, and only 2% of the records, as I explained before, had any error in the validation. Here you have like 1% on indication, another 1% on the pediatric use. So you have split it a bit, the different information on those errors that we have spotted as part of the audit. Those numbers are related to the service desk. You can see that every year the number of tickets increased because we are trying to move different services into service desk. So for example, in 2022, the e-learning process started to be managed through service desk. That is also why you have seen an increase on the number of tickets that we received every year. But as you can see, the overall compliance, which is linked to the SLAs that we have for every ticket type. So you know that we have incidents, we have requests, we have questions. The overall compliance for those SLAs is met. And we have good numbers for all of the different years. And the idea, obviously, in our what we are trying to do is to try to improve this overall compliance by replying as quick as possible and also as the best as possible to those tickets that we received. So that just as an overview of those XEVMPD statistics, we have almost 700,000 total active validated records in XEVMPD. 2022, we have received more than 600,000 submissions, taking into account new records and updates or any maintenance activity. We have validated 128,000 records, and then we have received almost 2,000 tickets in service now. So these tickets are increased over the years, but it represents, so we have this training requests, the questions, the incidents, but they represent less than 5% of all the processing. Our main focus is on the data, on trying to standardize all the data and aiming to validate as many records as possible to be able to standardize this data. As part of the customer satisfaction survey that we send you every year, we can see that the numbers are pretty good. So we have received, we have over almost 1.5 million medicinal products in XEVMPD, almost 700,000 active validated products. We have only received 80 data quality incidents during last year among these almost 15,000 users. So we have a really low level of data quality incidents in Article 57. Only 1% of the users reported a data quality incident. So these are really good numbers. Then as part of the customer satisfaction, more than 77% rated the data services and the data quality in XEVMPD over good or excellent. So we think those are really good numbers. We are always trying to improve and make our services better, but we are happy with the feedback that we have received from you, the users, industry, and NCAs, and everybody. So I'm handing back to Veronica for the documentation. So where can you find all the information related to XEVMPD and also some help?
Marcos, as you might be aware, the EMA corporate website is the main platform where we keep documents for marketing authorization holders, which includes the overview of the reporting requirements, as well as links to all the guidance documents we have. Also, overview of documents for sponsors of clinical trials, again, on the data submission requirements and the guidance document and FAQ document for sponsors directly, and also information on how to register with due diligence for product reporting. All this is available on the EMA corporate website. Training information can be found also on the EMA corporate website on the XEVMPD training webpage. There you have the overview of the available training courses, which, as Marcos mentioned before, the XEVMPD training courses are available as virtual training courses organized by DIA and as e-learning. And also on those web pages, you can see the step-by-step guides, which you might find very useful, and the EVWeb user manual. Also, as you can see, we have an EMA info channel, which contains the videos of all sport webinars with the tips and tricks and questions raised from users. We also provide our services through the EMA service desk. There you can request information, support with XEVMPD data management, and also report technical issues. This is all managed through the ServiceNow portal. Registered users with EudraVigilance can access the EV restricted area where you have access to all the EV services, be it EVWeb, the XEVMPD export tool, the bulk update tool, EV post functionality, etc. And you can also find a user support section where you have all the technical documentation related to the individual tools and system. User management, as we mentioned previously, is managed in the EMA account management portal. There you can find guidance on how to obtain access to the EMA systems, including SPOR and XEVMPD. And also you can create a new EMA account and request SPOR user roles. So on the EMA corporate website, you can find background information for marketing authorization holders, and as I previously mentioned, the documents related to data submission for authorized medicines. For marketing authorization holder, I would like to bring the attention to the Chapter 3.2 XEVPRM user guidance, which is, in my opinion, one of the most useful documents for you. Also, you can find FAQ on that webpage. You can find the controlled vocabularies. You can find information about the data quality control methodology, etc., etc. For sponsors of clinical trials, there's also a dedicated webpage. The webpage can be found under the clinical trials section of the EMA corporate website. And on that particular webpage, you can find two important documents for sponsors of clinical trials, one of them being the guidance on the electronic submission of IMPs by sponsors, and the other is the FAQ document. And the third, again, very important section of the corporate website is EudraVigilance electronic reporting section, where you can find the EMA EudraVigilance registration manual providing detailed instructions of how an organization, be it a marketing authorization holder or sponsor, can register with EudraVigilance. As previously mentioned, the EMA account management portal provides general guidance on how to register users and use the IAM tool. We also have an EMA YouTube channel where you can find the videos of webinars and the related presentations can be found in the SPOR portal. And in ServiceNow, we have the SPOR dashboard where you can, as I mentioned before, request XEVMPD related information, support with management of XEVMPD data. Also, you can request the registration for XEVMPD e-learning training, knowledge evaluation, and report technical issues with the XEVMPD. You can also find articles in the knowledge base section where you can find information that you may be looking for.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. I think we are coming to a part of the presentation that might be quite interesting for some people. So here we go with the XEVMPD and the relationship with PMS and also the EAF. So as you already know, we have SciAMed2, which is the internal EMA database containing only centrally authorized product data. This data, we have done some data mapping between the the data that we have in SciAmed and the data that we have in the different services of SPOR, and we have migrated this data. So PMS already contains this centrally authorized product and the data that we have for those products from SciAmed 2. So this is already in PMS, and you can see these products and some of this data in the PLM portal. Now, we also have XEVMPD. And in XEVMPD, we have CAPS, and we also have non-CAPS product data. So what we are doing is another data mapping exercise. So we are mapping all the data, the different terms, the different all the data that we have in XEVMPD, we are mapping it to the different services of SPOR, so to substances, to referentials, to organizations, etc. And then we will migrate this data for non-CAPS. For CAPS, we already have the CAPS in PMS coming from SciAmed. So what we are doing is what we call the match and merge protocol. So whenever there is a product, a centrally authorized product in PMS coming from SciAmed, I will be able to match it to the centrally authorized product in XEVMPD, and I will be able to merge the information that is coming from XEVMPD. That means that PMS will contain centrally and non-centrally authorized products and data from SciAmed and XEVMPD. And hopefully this is happening this year. So this is a diagram that I think you have already seen a couple of times. This is a summary of the data model that we have in PMS. Here you have the different sections. You have the medicinal product, the name, the master files, the manufacturers, the packaged medicinal products, the pharmaceutical products. And with the different colors, what we are aiming to represent is where the data for each of those sections is coming from. So you can see that, for example, the pharmaceutical product data is coming from Article 57. So we will migrate the pharmaceutical products from XEVMPD to PMS. The packaged medicinal products, so manufactured items, the packaged components, the manufacturers, they are in blue. They are coming from SciAmed. We don't have this information in XEVMPD, so we cannot migrate it. Then we also have some sections where we don't have data. We don't have it neither in SciAmed nor in XEVMPD, so we cannot migrate this information. And then we have mixed fields. We have fields with data from XEVMPD and missing data, like the therapeutic indications. We have sections where we have SciAmed data and missing data. So, for example, the manufactured items. And there are then fields where we don't have any data. So, for example, the storage conditions. We don't have this data in SciAmed. We don't have this data in XEVMPD. So in PMS, for the moment, this field will be blank. This is how the medicinal products in PMS will look like by the end of Q2 of this year, because we are aiming to migrate all the data from XEVMPD into PMS by the end of this quarter. Now, when we migrate the data from XEVMPD for non-centrally authorized products, do you know that in XEVMPD, we can have these non-centrally authorized products at different levels? So we can have a record at presentation level, which means that we have one EV code per presentation. For other products, this is mostly depending on the country of authorization, we can have the XEVMPD data at medicinal product level. So we don't have presentations in XEVMPD, we just have only one record for all the presentations. And then we also have some countries like Belgium, Finland, and Luxembourg, this is a typo, sorry, where the authorized products are submitted several times because we have different official languages for those countries. So, for example, in Belgium, we will have 3 different records because we have 3 official languages. So, what we have done in XEVMPD is we have built a logic to group different records that belong to the same medicinal product in PMS. So records that in XEVMPD contained the same MA holder, authorization country, active substance or active substances, and their strengths, and the same authorized pharmaceutical dose form will be grouped in the same medicinal product in PMS. Then, for all the countries except Belgium, Finland, and Luxembourg, the product full name will also be part of these grouping elements. So I will give you examples later. So if I have all these 6 data elements that are the same, these will belong to the same, these records in XEVMPD will be grouped under the same medicinal product in PMS. For Belgium, Finland, and Luxembourg, we cannot use the product full name because we have different names for the same medicinal product. So instead of the product full name, what we are using is the authorization number, because even though the name is different, the authorization number will be the same, and therefore we can group those records under the same medicinal product in PMS. Here I have a couple of examples. Here we have a product with the same headquarter, the same authorization country, the same substance name and strengths, the dose form, the full presentation name, and the authorization number. So the full name is the same, and the authorization number is different. So in XEVMPD, I have 3 EV codes. In this case, we know that it's 1 per presentation, so everything is the same but the authorization number. So in PMS, we will group them and we will have 1 medicinal product with 3 packages under this medicinal product. If we take another example, here we have the same headquarter, country, substance and strength, the same pharmaceutical dose form, different name, and different authorization number. So in this case, I know I have 3 EV codes in XEVMPD, 1 per product. So as the full presentation name and the country is Spain, I know that I have 3 different medicinal products, and I will create 1 package medicinal product for each of them. Obviously, there might be data quality issues in XEVMPD. Those data quality issues, some of those data quality issues might be visible through the PLM portal, because as soon as we migrate all the data from PMS, sorry, as soon as we migrate all the data from XEVMPD into PMS, you will be able to see them in the PLM portal, as you can see the centrally authorized products now. So in case you need to fix any data quality issues, you can do it directly through XEVMPD, and XEVMPD will be synchronized with PMS. Any data quality issue that we have in XEVMPD can obviously result in the incorrect migration of product data or the generation of products in PMS. I will give you a couple of examples later. But it's important here, you can find more information on the EUIG Chapter 7, how the data is in XEVMPD. It's really important for us because depending on the data quality that we have in XEVMPD, that will be the data quality also in PMS. So some examples of data quality issues might be, for example, different names because I have a typo in the name, and therefore PMS will recognize this as different medicinal products. We might also have differences on the marketing authorization number. I can have differences on how the strength of an active substance is included in different records that belong to the same medicinal product. So we are actually trying to improve the way we validate and we standardize the data, but we can foresee that there can be data quality issues. But we are also working to build those business rules that if there is any change on XEVMPD to solve those data quality issues, we can trigger this change, and therefore the product will be amended in PMS. Some PMS and EAF related questions. So you know that For Article 57, only specific products are in a scope, but sometimes you need to have those different products used for the for EAF. You need to send a variation for homeopathic medicinal products or for products that are not under the scope of Article 57. In case you need to use the variation form for those products, you have these voluntary submissions. So you can send these products into XEVMPD and they will be migrated to PMS, and therefore you will be able to see them in the PLM portal, use the DADI variation form with them, etc., etc. We will provide additional guidances. So as soon as we release the product, the different products in PMS, and you will start seeing them in the PLM portal, we will release additional Q&A documents. But here, if you cannot find your product in the PLM portal, you need to follow like different steps. You need to check if the product is in XEVMPD and if it's not nullified. If the correct MA holder is assigned, then you need to check that in OMS, the mapping between the EV code and the OMS ID is correct. And then that you are logged into the PLM portal also with the same organization. If everything there is correct, but you still cannot see your product, then you can raise a ticket. So don't do it now. There are no non-caps in the PLM portal. You can only see the caps. But as soon as we give the announcement that, okay, now you can see all the non-caps products in the PLM portal, you can go and check all this information and you can raise any ticket if you have any doubt. As I explained before, there can be data quality issues with the XEVMPD data. So any change that you need to do to XEVMPD, you can correct it. You can go to XEVMPD, update the record, and these updates will be reflected in PMS, and in this case, through the PLM portal. There was a question that I also see that was replied related to how long would it take to see the updates coming from XEVMPD. So the idea is that it can be real time, but that will depend also on the amount of messages that we need to process from XEVMPD. But obviously our goal is to increase the performance during this year. So at the beginning, it might take maybe 1 day or even 2 days, but the goal is that we will improve this performance. We will also provide more information as soon as we know the real performance. We are doing those tests and we are trying to also improve the performance of the system. I've seen also a couple of questions regarding the non-approved medicinal products from MRPs and DCPs. You cannot submit those products yet to XEVMPD, but we are foreseen to have this in place by Q3 or Q4 this year. We are talking together. We are having meetings. The XEVMPD team, the EUDRA Vigilance team, EAF and DADI team, because we want to implement this feature. So we will give you more information on how to include those records in XEVMPD so you can use the variation form. But for the moment, you are not allowed to do it. So a bit of a summary of what all these new steps for PMS and DADI and everything, how does this impact XEVMPD? First of all, DMP submission should be done in XEVMPD for the foreseeable future. Depending authorized medicinal product should not be done for the moment in XEVMPD. We will have we know that industry is really willing to have this feature. We know it, and we are working on it, but we will try to implement this in Q3, Q4 this year. Then if you need voluntary submissions to XEVMPD because you need to use those products in the DADI variation form, you are allowed to do it. You can submit the herbal, the homeopathic medicinal products. There are guidances that explain all this information, so you can check them. AMP submissions, that is very important. XEVMPD submissions are still mandatory and are the only way to keep PMS updated. So for the moment, there is no way to do direct submissions to PMS. Only submissions to XEVMPD are allowed. and actually are mandatory. You need to keep your products updated in XEVMPD, and any update will be propagated to PMS. Related to data enrichment in PMS, for the moment, it is not possible. We are working on the different enablers that we need to have in place to allow users to enrich the data. So we are talking about the product user interface, the API submissions. If you need more information, we have a lot of webinars and recordings on PMS. We will provide also additional webinars this year for PMS. But again, it is not possible for the moment because we need to have all those enablers in place. But again, once we have more information, a clearer roadmap with more defined timelines, we will provide this. And obviously, there will be a transition period for you to be able to start enriching the data. The long-term goal that we have is to be able to replace XEVMPD submissions, and that this can be done directly through PMS for both CAPs and non-CAPs. And then also another important part of the presentation is the recent and planned activities that we have.
As most of you are aware, the multi-factor authentication has been successfully deployed in XEVMPD production on 28th of March 2023. I hope that you have not experienced any issues having this set up. If so, we would encourage you to log a service desk ticket to report any issues you might have with this. XCOMP will follow. We are currently discussing how to do the same for XCOM because of the XEVMPD training, which currently take place in this environment. As you might have also noticed, and this is for marketing authorization holders mainly, the second, which is an optional language code field, was available in EVWeb for attachments from April 2023. This is to allow to reference two language codes in an attachment entity where the attachment has content in two different languages. This is specifically related to countries where you can have multiple languages for the same product information in the same SMPC, for example, Finnish, Swedish. So you can now actually you can submit your attachments and reference in that attachment that the attachment references the content in two different languages in EVWeb. Also, many registered users should at this point be informed that the QPPVs or responsible persons will be required to review the access of the users registered under the organization profile in the EMA account management portal every 6 months. This will be something that will be happening from Q3 2023. And if you haven't received a communication on this, please contact us through the EMA service desk. And one of the latest updates, which will actually be happening next week, I believe, there will be a Chrome update version 113 scheduled for the 26th of April, which will affect IETAP extension. As you know, you can only access EVWeb using IETAP extension either in Chrome or Edge. Please note that if you have deployed IETAP from the Chrome Web Store, which is the EMA recommended solution, there will be no impact for you as the user. The IETAP listing in the Chrome Web Store already has been updated with the workaround solution, and the update will be automatic. However, there will be impact on users who deployed the IETAP with an offline or custom deployment package. These users will have to update the IETAP extension to at least version 16.3.28.1 to avoid a break-in change that will be coming. If you are one of the users who deployed IETAP with an offline or custom deployment package, please contact us through the EMA service desk and ask for assistance. Again, a communication was sent to all EV registered users sometimes last week. Now, planned activities for 2023. So from May 2023, we would like to ask all of you who are submitting your objections to the changes that were performed to your authorized medicinal product data as part of the validation through a request for XEVMPD services through the EMA service desk. At the moment, you log these objections via an incident, so you report in an issue. From May, we would like to ask you to report these as a request for XEVMPD service. Also, from the beginning of this quarter, we will be adding and creating new articles in the knowledge base of the EMA service desk. So that will be like an online version of an FAQ document, except you will only have the answers. So before you actually need to log a ticket through the EMA service desk, we would encourage you to go and search in the service desk knowledge base for the answer before you log a ticket. There will be more information coming, as I said, from the beginning of this quarter. We have already uploaded some of these. Some information is available, but it is fairly limited. So please bear with us. We are hoping to have a wider range of information available by the end of this year. In terms of XEVMPD data management and data services, as Marcos has informed you previously, there was a process change with regards to the publication of the controlled vocabulary lists. These controlled vocabulary lists are mainly referential terms, marketing authorization, organizations, and substances. You are now required to extract the required lists and information from the dedicated SPOR portal from RMS, OMS, and SMS directly. Good news for marketing authorization holders. As you are aware, the initial validation of AMPs, which were newly submitted, takes place within 2 weeks since the initial submission. We perform this validation once a week, so to speak. We will be increasing the frequency of how often newly inserted products are validated to 2 times a week from mid this quarter. I would like to talk to you about the submission of marketing authorization holder information in the XEVMPD. We will do this in detail after I'll skip through this very quick review. The same with regards to the process improvement, with regards to request creation of proposed terms via RMS. Also, the EMA would like to perform an MAH data cleansing exercise. This is on the marketing authorization holder organization data in XEVMPD. Again, more details will follow. And as some of you may have heard during the previously mentioned Substance Management Service webinar, which took place early today, we are going to perform a remap of development substances in development medicinal products. Again, further information to follow shortly. In terms of XEVMPD documentation, we are very aware that we're behind with the Chapter 3.2 update and publication, which was advertised last week. My apologies about that. However, we are trying to do our utmost. As you know, that there's lots of documents and lots of web pages that the EMA team needs to review and bring up to date. This is something that is planned to be completed by the end of this year. However, Chapter 3.2 update and its publication is planned for end of this quarter. What we're also planning is that in September, I believe, towards the end of Q3, we would like to have another SPOR webinar week. We will definitely have an XEVMPD webinar, and also there will be a SPOR customer satisfaction survey. Now, if I can go into the detail of some of these planned changes that are coming. So, as previously mentioned, marketing authorization holder details should or can be now submitted in the XEVMPD based on the rules which are enforced by OMS. This means that marketing authorization holders should insert the MAH details in the XEVMPD as they were submitted to OMS. At the moment, the rule is that the MAH organization details must be submitted as it is stated in the SMPC. You can now actually enter the MAH info in accordance with the rules and standards for the organization name and address specified by OMS. If you choose to do so, we would like to ask you to include the lock ID of the MAH entity in OMS in the comment field, which is the field 018 of the MAH organization entity in the XEVMPD. You can start doing so from this quarter. The reason for this change is to support successful PMS implementation and OMS synchronization. The impact on you is that there is a change of process and you will be required to update the MAH data in the XEVMPD. The benefit of this change is to have improved data quality. Also, you are less likely to have issues with PMS migration and data being used by EAF. Chapter 3.2 will include further information on this. With regards to the submission of proposed terms, again, to support successful implementation of PMS and EAF, the proposed terms from the relevant lists will be requested and created in RMS and then created in XEVMPD by RMS team. What we would like to do is to block the creation of proposed terms by marketing authorization holders and sponsors in the XEVMPD. The date for this is yet to be confirmed. However, you can already start requesting proposed terms to be submitted in the XEVMPD on behalf of the company via RMS from Q2 2023. Again, the impact on you, it's a change in process. However, you will at least become familiar with how to request data via RMS. And the benefit is improved data quality. Again, you will be less likely to have issues with PMS migration and data being used in EAF. Now, let's talk about the MAH organization data cleansing exercise we would like to perform in the XEVMPD to improve the MAH organization list and again support successful submission, successful implementation of PMS and OMS synchronization. The EMA has performed a quick overview of the MAH organizations currently available in the XEVMPD. We will nullify around 60 MAH organization entities which have been flagged by you, so by marketing authorization holders, as obsolete. So the MAH entity contains the information obsolete due to duplication or obsolete because this is a duplicate of organization with EV code 12345. We will also review the country codes currently referenced in the marketing authorization entity incorrect if it is required, the country code. There is a fairly large number of organizations, and these are mainly organizations which are based in Great Britain, which reference, for example, London or any other place in the territory of Great Britain, not in Northern Ireland, but still referencing the country code XI, which corresponds to United Kingdom, Northern Ireland. So the country code of such entity referencing London as the address or city will have to be corrected to GB corresponding to United Kingdom. So you should only reference XI, which corresponds to United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, in an MAH entity if the location of the MAH is indeed in Northern Ireland. So again, this is something that the EMA will do and correct unless you want to go and make the update yourself. What we would also like to ask marketing authorization holders is to review the information that you insert in the comment field of the MAH entity and remove information that really should not be there. So the comment field is mainly for you to provide information that you cannot provide in any other field of the MAH entity, for example, website or any other contact detail, not to include text such as change of name and address or company renamed or change of company name but same legal entity, etc., etc. Also, when you nullify the MAH organization or when we nullify the MAH organization, we have to enter in the comment field the reason for nullification, which might not be possible if the comment field already contains a very long text, which is not providing the information that it should. So please review your MAH organization entities in the XEVMPD and amend it as required. Again, the benefit will be the improved data quality. Remap of development substances in DMPs to approved substances. So to increase the data quality and ensure that the same substance ID is used across the product lifecycle, the EMA has performed an exercise where we identified development substances containing information that is not complete or incorrect. As you know, previously, sponsors were able to submit in the XEVMPD development substances before the EMA blocked such submissions. And it is now the SMS team who, in fact, enters substance information in the XEVMPD on request from the marketing authorization holders and sponsors. So what we need to do now is to review these development substances and see if we already have approved substance available that can be used as a replacement substance, and therefore we will have to relink the information in the development medicinal product to an approved substance. So what we will do is we will request supporting documentation from sponsors, and this is from those who have inserted a development medicine or development substance in the XEVMPD. The sponsors will be required to provide the supporting documents by the specified date or update the DMPs to reference the replacement approved substance that we have identified and that we will communicate to them. We will perform the relinking of the development substances to approved substances sometimes from Q3 2023. And once the development substance that needs to be nullified, that is incorrect and obsolete, we will perform the nullification, very likely sometimes only from Q4 2023. The impact on sponsors is that they should always reference, if possible, an approved substance EV code in the XEVMPD instead of a development substance EV code. Sponsors and EMA will have to update the DMP information. Again, the benefit is that we will have much better quality of data in the XEVMPD.
Okay, and just to finish the presentation, 2 minutes behind the schedule, but in really good time. So we have here the key takeaways and conclusions for this webinar, and then we can go to the Q&A. So as conclusions of this webinar, we have already explained what are the submission requirements that we have for marketing authorization holders and how the authorized medicinal product data is currently managed in XEVMPD. We have also reminded the sponsors of which are the submissions requirements and how the developed medicinal product data should be submitted in XEVMPD. We also provided an update on the relationship between XEVMPD, PMS, and EAF, the DADI variation form. We have provided also information on the statistics and, very important, on the planned improvements for this year. So coming back to the questions on the webinar, let me try to see if I can share now the presentation here. I hope you all can see my screen.
Yes, all good. We can see it.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. So we have time to reply a couple of questions, then we also have a poll that we would like to share with you to receive your feedback on the webinar that we have just presented. So the first question is, when is PMS anticipated to go live, and when should we start submitting data using PMS rather than XEVMPD? So we have already explained it here in the webinar that, well, actually PMS is already live. PMS contains centrally authorized medicinal product data, and you can see this data or part of this data through the PLM portal. We are trying to have a new data release in by the end of this quarter with the data from XEVMPD, but PMS is already live. Nevertheless, submissions directly to PMS are not possible yet. We also explained we need to have different components in place to make available the PMS submissions, and therefore XEVMPD submissions are still mandatory. This is the only way actually to update PMS. So yeah, I think that would be the reply to this question. PMS is live already. We are aiming to do a data release for non-caps, and XEVMPD submissions are still mandatory. We will try to provide additional information and more clear roadmap on the timelines as soon as possible. I think I can mark this as answered. Okay, so what if a person who has completed their training during the initial registration of the organization with EV has left the company? There is no problem. So the at least one person from the organization should have the certificate of the training. So if there is no one on the company with this training, then you need to register for this certificate. And the person who has left the company, because I think there was another question, this certificate is personal, so you can bring this certificate with you, and even if you go to a different company, you can use this certificate. You don't need to pass the exam again for the another company. We have another question regarding the Internet Explorer, and is still required to access Article 57 and EV Web. Will this be changed in the future? So no. What do you want to?
No, you will continue to access Article 57 interface using the IE tab in Chrome or in Edge for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Oh, I mark another one who was related to the pending products in XEVMPD. I think we have already replied to this question as well on the webinar. For the moment, you cannot submit pending products to XEVMPD. Then we have another question. Is now the time to check and correct the data in XEVMPD for non-caps, especially for the ingredients fields? I have replied to this question. It has been always the time to check and correct the data in XEVMPD, because it has been always the ME holder's responsibility to keep correct and up-to-date data in XEVMPD. So obviously, if you want to continue doing this activity now, it would be also appreciated, because then correct data will be migrated to PMS. But again, it's not now. It has always been MA holder's responsibility to have correct data. We have another question regarding the package description value in XEVMPD, which is going to be used for the PCID generation while migrating the data into PMS. So why this package description field is classified as minor? So first of all, it's not the package description. The defining element for the PCID is the pack size. Then we don't have all the defining elements in XEVMPD or in SciAmed to generate the PCID, and that's why you cannot see PCIDs right now in the PLM portal, because we are not able to generate them. Because we don't have all the defining elements. There are missing data. And also because the package description field is an optional field in XEVMPD. So it is not really used for any pharmacovigilance activities, mostly to identify the package that we have in XEVMPD. So that's why it's classified as a minor field if there is any error during the validation of this product, of this field, sorry. So as you mentioned in chapter 7, migration rules, some of the field's information does not define source of truth, like storage conditions are missing in migration data, right? Okay, so as I explained, there are some fields that will be missed in PMS. It will be blank because we don't have this data. There is no problem. Data will be missing. We are planning and we have a roadmap for this to be able to allow users to enrich product data. So to provide the missing data that we don't have in PMS because we don't have it in any of the sources that we have. So at some point, we will provide this capability to enrich product data in PMS. But in the meantime, if there is no data, there is no problem. We cannot invent or made up the data, so there is no problem. So after PMS goes live, if we can instantly update information in PMS. So obviously not, because as I said, PMS is already live and you cannot update data directly through PMS. But you will be able to update data in PMS through XEVMPD. So as I said, any change that is done in XEVMPD will be propagated to PMS, and the same in SIAMED. If I have a new authorization for a centrally authorized product, this product will be recorded in SIAMED. So it will also be updated in PMS. So indirectly, you are able to update data in PMS, but not by submissions directly to PMS. I have also replied to this question regarding the certification that is is assigned to a person. So if they leave the company, they can keep the certificate. And then we have one more question here. At the moment, PMS ID in PLM is identical to the MP ID. Is that correct? Will either of the numbers will change in the future? So it is correct. The PMS ID and the MP ID are the same in the PLM portal, but that's wrong. We don't have the capability for the moment to generate the MP ID, and that's why we are putting in the MP ID field the same as the PMS ID. This will change in the future. We will regenerate the MP ID. So for the moment, we encourage you to use the PMS ID in case you need to use it. So after answering this question, and as we have 3 minutes, I will launch the poll. I don't know, Miriam, if I'm doing it correctly.
It's on. Thank you. Thank you, Marcos. It's on.
Okay, so yeah, please fill the survey from our side, from Veronica, from my side, also from Isabel, Miriam, and everybody that has been organizing those webinars. We want to say thank you. We are always at your disposal if you have any questions through the service desk. We will have additional webinars for SPORE, for XEVMPD, for PMS, for all these topics that we have been raising here. And yeah, we hope it has been useful for you. So thank you very much. And yeah, I think we don't have any additional survey, right, Miriam?
No, this is just a survey that has been just published now. We will keep it running until 4:10. So please feel free to participate. Any feedback welcomed. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
And also
Have a good
regarding the questions that we have in the slide, I think we have replied most of them. In any case, if we will try to reply to all of them, so you can also come back to a slide or check the questions and check also the reply. And if you have any really specific question that maybe we have not addressed because we needed the participation of other people like CTIS colleagues or other people that are not part of the meeting right now, you can always raise a ticket on service desk and we will try to reply as soon as possible. Yeah, and said that, I think we can close the meeting and we give you one more minute of your time. So thank you very much, everybody, and see you around in the following meetings. Thank you.